Welcome, everyone. You're listening to the ImPerfect Podcast. I'm Kathy.
And I'm Kennedy. Join us on this week's episode as we discuss intriguing topics and people of interest that will inspire us to explore all of the unique pieces of ourselves.
We are all imperfectly perfect.
We're glad you're here. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the ImPerfect Podcast.
Hi, welcome back. Today, we'd like to welcome Kent Bulmer to our show. I've known Kent for a number of years. He and my brother became friends in school, so he was hanging around at my house sometimes when I was younger. Kennedy and I also had the opportunity to spend time with Kent and one of his daughters when we went on a mission trip to Cuba back in 2013.
Yeah, so Kent is a software developer who has worked in software for the past 30 years, even spending about 10 years of that time as a partner in his own company. He is a husband and a dad to 3 grown children. He and his wife were previously involved in running a charity called Burning Bush Ministries, where they ran programs for youth, music events, and prison visitations. In the past 15 years or so, Kent and his wife have been hosting weekly Bible studies in their home as well.
In his spare time, Kent enjoys playing both the bass and the banjo, writing his thoughts on biblical topics that he shares via the internet. And he volunteers a lot of time supporting the Writers Federation of New Brunswick because his wife is the executive director there. Kent also spends time sketching and coming up with scripts for his animations. Yeah, you heard me right. Kent is the creator of The Coffee Cafe, an animated cartoon strip which can be found on YouTube under the channel of Code Poet Media.
Yeah, so it looks like we've got a lot to talk about in this episode. So without further ado, here's Kent. Hi, Kent. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for agreeing to chat with us today. Naturally so, being the ImPerfect Podcast, we started off our meeting with Kent with some technology issues. Mom looked like she was having a dance party with the way her screen was going with things, so we had to...
Yeah. It was really cool.
Yeah. So we had to improvise. So here we are. That's why Mom might look a little bit in a different position today, but we're just gonna roll with it. So why don't you start by telling us and all of our listeners, who is Kent and what's your story? What do you do in your spare time? What are your interests? Things like that.
Yeah, Kent is a software developer by day. So as you see me here in my office, this is how the world perceives me when I get on my calls. And so I've been working from home for the last 10, 11 years now going on. So yeah, I was ahead of the curve with everybody working from home. So
yeah, I guess so. So what do you do besides your job? What do you do in your spare time? I see some instruments in the background, things like that.
Yeah, I always get questions about that. I never blur my background, so it gives people something to talk about when I get on a call.
Yeah.
So I play the bass here and the banjo. I have guitars and all kinds of other instruments that you can't see behind there either. So I have a bit of a problem with collecting these things, and my wife tries to rein those in, but I still have too many. So more than I know how to play. So put it that way.
That's okay though. There's worse habits.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit, Kent, about your animation that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, sure. I started doing an animation going back a few years now. It's that I called the Coffee Cafe, and I came up with the name just trying to think of something original that would work in Moncton. That translated well, and come to find out that name is used all over the place. There's actually a coffee cafe in Halifax, so
oh, no way.
I haven't been yet, but that's on my bucket list.
Sounds like a business proposition there, perhaps.
Little synergy working.
Yeah.
Do some animation for these guys. Yeah.
Well, I was just gonna say we do have a couple of Kent's pieces of animation as well, and we'll show that a little bit later too. But yeah, the initial thing that got Mom and I interested and wanted to reach out to you is we know that not just you, but your whole family is super creative minds, and you guys are great at really putting it into practice. Like, because I know that your daughter Sophie also has an Instagram where she posts all of her drawings. Robin is doing the videography, things like that. And your wife is also doing it's writing stories, right?
Yeah, she's a writer. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So they're all way better than me now. So I started off drawing with them when they're young and shooting videos and stuff. So Robin does beautiful videos. Sophie's a much better artist than I will ever be. She draws because she draws more, right? So that's what it takes. And
What's
Caleb,
I was gonna say Caleb.
he's studying software development, so you know that trajectory is kind of set. I think that he'll surpass me there in the next few years. So
yeah, that's cool though.
yeah,
I actually went back today on some of our memories from the mission trip that we went on, and looked through your sketches that you did along the journey. That was kind of neat to look back on. So I don't know how anybody could be better than that. I mean, I draw stick figures, and that's about it.
yeah, that was fun on that trip because I couldn't speak Spanish, and it was fun to be there with you guys. We went with a whole bunch of teens and a few adults, Kathy and me and a few others, and I took my drawing pad with me, and I ended up, when I ran into kids or things like that, I would just sit down with them and we'd both draw on the same page. And that was just because I couldn't speak to them. But it was a way of connecting with them, and that worked a lot better than I thought it would. I hadn't imagined doing that going down, but that was yeah. So it was kind of neat that it was a way to loop in with them a little bit. And
so what gave you the idea of doing the coffee cafe to begin with?
I'd originally, I guess I'd started out, we wanted to do a project that was about New Brunswick, that was kind of local. You look at animations and stuff like that, everybody tries to hit something that, could be relevant to everybody in the US and Canada, and general topical appeal, but we wanted to do something that was just local interest, because there's not a lot of that. So I had originally written scripts that were live action, like a web series kind of thing, and that was just too far out of reach to do, get actors and the film crew and stuff like that. It just seemed like the project was just too big to really get started. So yeah, I just started tinkering around with doing it as an animation, and then started writing scripts in that direction. So yeah.
And I watched a few of them today. You certainly accomplished your local maritime vibe there. That comes to mind. I don't even know what episode it was in, but you were talking about do our French kids better at math?
Oh yeah.
The joke about, oh yeah, of course they are. They don't want us to know all their little math secrets. That's why they have to go on a separate school bus. So.
That was very topical at the time. That may be a little dated now, but that was a question around New Brunswick. The French and English kids were driving different school buses.
Right.
Yeah, and yeah, that was actually the first one that I did, just as a test to see if I could even finish something like that. And so yeah, I think that one's just a minute long, and it's one little gag, and yeah. So, but I did that, and then we started doing some longer ones, and.
I saw recently as well, you have started to pull in different people as voice actors as well, right? And I noticed you got Carter to work in collaboration with you for one thing. I'm not so sure what that was about, but I saw a quick video on it.
Yeah, I love Carter. So
we do too.
Yeah. Well, you have to.
I guess so.
Yeah. We The latest one that was the latest one that we did, and so we recorded that. I'm gonna say, yeah, that was 2020. We recorded that,
Hmm.
and yeah, so we had Carter over, and he did some photography for us, and some audio because he's into that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
And so yeah, and that one we had Emma Rudy doing the voices, and typically we get together in the same room around a microphone and we do it, but this was the first one. She was in PEI in Charlottetown, and she was working. She's the actress that was performing Anne at the Confederation Center
Hmm.
there for a few years.
Neat.
Yeah, and so I just on spec called, sent her a message saying, would you like to voice? I had this idea for a script, and would you be interested in that? And that's kind of how I approach it. Like I've done 3 with local personalities.
Hmm.
The first one I did was with Travis Furlong, who's a local musician,
Yeah,
and he's a
I know
friend of
who he is.
mine.
Yeah.
He's a friend of mine, so I thought, I'll start with somebody who will have a hard time saying no to me, and
That's
so
why
Luke,
we go to you.
Yeah, that's why we talk to
it's
you.
a good strategy, I'm telling you. And so he said yes, and that went really well, and it was fun, and it kind of looped in people that he knew and
Right.
stuff, and yeah, so yeah, I just tried to continue with that. So we did one with the radio guys, Scotty and Tony,
Nice.
Yeah.
and that was really fun. They're really funny, and so
Yeah.
we had a blast recording that. It was probably the best recording session that we'd done, and yeah, and that one we were nominated. Well, not we were selected for a few film festivals with that one because I just kind of pitched it out on spec, and the Charlottetown Film Festival picked us up. So that's kind of what made me think,
Amazing.
wow, I had this script, and that I've always got half a dozen scripts just written. I don't know if I'm ever going to do them or not, but just had that one that with that Charlottetown hook in it. So I thought, well, I should see if I could do this one now that
Yeah.
this film festival's picked me up. So that
So
was kind of
cool.
why I went in that direction with it. But yeah,
Yeah, and like you were saying too, all it takes is a connection to
yeah,
someone. And even we've started to experience that too, just with talking with people. And, that's all it takes is one little chat with someone and hey, I know someone, and then you just build from there. So that's kind of cool.
get a little momentum going with it. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. And what's it hurt to ask too, right? So it's
that's
like you
right.
said, you just kind of threw it out there to Emma and she agreed and you guys went with it. So yeah. We also just wanted to know, beyond, I mean, you live life differently with animation and everything. Not everyone can say that they do animation, because even like you were saying, that 1 minute video, I'm sure a lot of work went into that 1 minute video. All of the mouth movements and recordings and all that sort of thing. I'm sure we can't even begin to imagine. But how else do you live life differently? I know that you're part of the worship team at
Hmm.
the Glad Tidings Church, things like that. What other sort of things do you do that maybe an ordinary person wouldn't say
Oh,
that they do?
an ordinary person. Uh,
Well, we
yeah,
are imperfect here,
yeah. Well, it's true. I'm in the right room, that's for sure. Yeah, I most of the stuff I do is right here. Like so even the volunteer things I do with the Writers Federation or things like that, I end up sitting at my desk for a lot of that because that's where my skills are, right? So
Mhm.
I probably spend an inordinate amount of time here in my office. And but yeah, outside of that, and I do have to push myself sometimes to step away. Is I do play like on the worship team, so I like to play music. That's fun. I don't. I always found in my experience, there's 2 types of musicians. There's musicians that like to practice, and there's musicians that like to perform.
Mhm.
And I'm kind of the practice side, where we just kind of enjoy getting together and playing and
Yeah.
rehearsing the song, and then oh yeah, I guess we got to do this in front of people too.
Yeah.
That's and then there's the other guys who don't care about practicing anyway. So yeah, I'm more of the first type of musician. It wouldn't bother me if I never performed in front of people.
You just love to do
Uh,
it. You do it to do
that's
it.
right.
Yeah. No, that's
That's
fair.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
my
and
boyfriend's the same way when he plays electric guitar, and he loves it, but he's camera stage shy. Pick
There
one.
you go.
He just much rather do it for himself than anyone else. So yeah.
There you go. See, it holds up.
Yeah.
Did-
What's that, Mom?
I was going to ask you, Kennedy, did you want to go through the content that Kent gave you, or do you want
Yeah,
to?
absolutely. We can do that right now. So I'm
Okay.
just gonna
Let's
share
do it.
my
I sent these
screen.
to Kennedy last minute, everybody. So
We're gonna try our
I'm
best here.
probably to blame for all the technical stuff.
Gosh, no.
I'll take the blame for it. It's okay.
All right. There we go.
Yeah.
All
Look
right.
at this. Look
So
at this.
for people who are watching on video, obviously you can see, but for those that are just listening to audio, I'll just get Kent to explain what's going on in the picture, what the purpose is, things like that, just so that those that are just listening can kind of get a feel for it as well.
Yeah, sure. I was in high school. This is my first published cartoon ever. I wanted to be a cartoonist when I was young. And
No way, huh?
yeah, so I had heroes like Hank Ketchum and doing Dennis the Menace and Johnny Hart and guys like that, and all these syndicated cartoonists, and I thought that's for me. That's what I want to do. And so what you're looking at here is the first cartoon that I ever had published, and that's October 12, 1988.
Wow.
Going back a few years.
So
And
this is in the newspaper?
This is in a local Salisbury, Petitcodiac, New Brunswick
Oh, no way. Really cool.
publication. It was a weekly publication called Positive Impact,
Mm.
and they gave me my first publication of a cartoon. And
Very cool.
yeah, it's
That's pretty big. Yeah. Neat.
I was
Yeah.
very excited the day that I saw that in print, and
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's a special time for any artist.
It's cool that you still have excuse me, still have that as well too. Like that's something that could easily be lost in papers, obviously, but it's cool that you've held on to that all these years.
In my piles of things, yes.
So this next one here.
So what you're looking at here, so years later, I'm past working for myself here, so I had a bit of a downward turn in my career, I guess, leaving my own company, and I landed in an office in the hospital here in Moncton, doing IT stuff. And so this series of cartoons here, it actually happened to me. So
Okay.
that's the claim to fame here. This is when I kind of took a downward career turn, and I turned back to drawing. I'd kind of stopped drawing for a few years, and so I turned back to it here, just to kind of get out some of at least put a comedic spin on some of the things I was going through professionally. So yeah, this is from my web series Pastor Kenny, and so the gist of this is I was never a pastor, so it's not autobiographical in that sense, but yeah, so his story is that he's through pastoring. He went through 2 churches and it just didn't work out, and so now he's working in an office now, just trying to get by. And so yeah, so in this cartoon, he's just being showed around and just trying not to act disappointed about how bad his workspace is going to be. And yeah, so you can see in the last panel there where it says, no, that's fine. It says, we're a little short on cubes right now. We'll set you up on this table next to the office printer. And he feigns excitement, but that's actually where I sat at that job. I was on a table out in the open with no cubicle walls. So I thought,
well, it's a positive outlook to make
yeah.
a comedic spin on it, right? It's
Yeah.
kind of cool to see your stuff now as well, because I'm seeing at the bottom like 2011, 2012. It's kind of neat
Right.
because your style has changed in some ways, but has stayed consistent in others too, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, and I find art goes like that. Like like you learn to steal little bits. You get inspired from other artists, and you take what you like, and
Yeah.
that's kind of always how I approached it. I was just more of an analytical kind of artist, and the first person I took ideas from was my sister Tina, who's a really good artist. Um, and so when we were kids, and I would kind of try and draw the way she does, and now I copy Sophie. So
How the tables have turned, huh?
that's right. Yeah, then I copy my daughter instead of my sister.
So
Yeah.
these ones are just other different like little excerpts from
Yeah,
the similar story.
the similar story. So he's going to work, and Lord, what am I doing here? And then the next frame it says, the recycling guy's here soon. Can you make sure all the paper in the bin has no staples? So that's what you're doing here. You're doing this terrible job. That's what.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then these scenes down below. So a guy approaching him where he's sitting next to the printer, and he's just a kind of one of those loud co-workers.
And you're stuck
And
next to the printer, right?
yeah, you're stuck.
Yeah.
So it's just the traffic all the time next to him, and he's like, don't worry, I won't let people bug you all the time while he's bugging them, and then the next person comes up and starts the same conversation all over again. So
Right.
just
Yeah.
multiply that times 1,000,000. And yeah.
Good on you though for you kind of have the Seinfeld concept going, right? Like,
It's
no, but
hard.
I mean that it's real life stuff, but you've turned
Right.
it
Yeah.
into yeah.
Mhm.
Yes. And I, my hat's off to you guys for doing your podcast consistently. That's what I couldn't do with this. It was I found it with the rest of life going on. I couldn't get them out like it. Most of these guys doing web comics will do 2 or 3 a week and stuff, and I just found that too difficult. So
Yeah.
I was
It's
just
not all as
opportunistic.
Yeah, well, it's not all as perfect as it seems on the front.
Right.
It takes a
Let's
lot of work.
last week when we got together to record, we didn't record. So
Yeah,
Right.
so it
awesome.
happens. Life
I
happens. It
I
is
believe
hard to
it.
stay consistent.
And
So
I found that the hardest thing, but and it's hard to tell a story in 3 panels. I thought that
mm,
you read comics and you think, well, yeah, that's pretty easy. That's only 3 drawings, but you have to kind of have a beginning, middle, and end, and all these things too. And it's so
right,
the writing is the real thing,
right,
as
right.
I found out
Yeah.
doing this. But yeah,
So,
so
was there anything you wanted to say on this next one here, or did you want to move on to the next one? Because it's similar to you were saying as well. It's similar kind of
yeah,
story.
that's a continuation of the story. And so I guess the last one there is just kind of tells the story of his life there, and that kind of sums up the whole cartoon.
Cool.
Where you have Pastor Kenny at 20, and God's on the move, and I want to be right in the middle of what he's doing. And then at 30, the standards go down a little bit. I want God to use me in a positive way in the lives of those around me. And then at 40s, I really would just like some walls for my cubicle. So
Just the
that's
mom
kind of
ask.
the thesis of the whole cartoon in that
Yeah,
one
really
Yeah.
comic.
cool. So did you want to speak a bit on this slide as well?
Yeah, sure. So after I did those web comics, I ended up my wife had written some stories, and we'd put together a couple books. And so the first one we did was Please Let Me In, and that was a story that the writing process takes a while, and especially to get it good and to get it right. And I think we did that with Please Let Me. I really like that story, and it Please Let Me In really kind of is the same thesis as your podcast. It's about thriving just in your own uniqueness, and
Mm-hmm.
just not worrying about getting into a certain space or with a certain crowd or things like that, and there's this idea that there's a perfection or something to be attained and all that. And
Right.
yeah, so that's kind of what that one was about. And I guess what spurred that on was she was just having trouble getting into the writing industry and like in the publishing industry.
Hmm.
And so we had the book really kind of came out of just joking around about it and thinking up of funny issues and stories about that. And so the book spawned out of that, and so we just self-published that, kind of true to the theme of it. So
So cool. Yeah.
yeah. And then Brussels sprouts, we did that one after, and it was that was a story that she had published uh, a while before that book, and we just decided to make a little book out of it. And I really like that one. It's nice. It's
Cool.
fun.
Cute.
Cute little story.
And this last slide here.
Yeah, so these ones, this is where we get into the animation. So from those books, I did for the Brussels sprouts, I ended up doing like a little 45-second animation just to promote the book,
Mm.
and thought, well, that was kind of fun. And so that's when I was kicking around the idea for the New Brunswick story, and thought, I'll try this minute-long animation that we talked about. And so from there, we started working on another one. So I think we've done 5 so far from the Coffee Cafe. And so there's one not represented. There's the first one we did was about Seniors Day. And
I think that's the one I saw for the very first time. I think
okay.
that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was a long one. Like that was 9 minutes long. And I discovered after that one, they need to be shorter than that.
Yeah.
It just took me too long to do.
Yeah.
So in the middle of that, so that was around 2017. We were coming up to Canada's 150 anniversary, and so we'd always wanted to do something. We'd own that when you mentioned Burning Bush Ministries. So there's a house out in Dorchester that we lived close to, that we ran a ministry out of, and it was the house was owned by Albert Smith, who was he's a historical figure in New Brunswick. He was one of the people who opposed Confederation. He was premier of the province for a while.
Mm.
And so we lived in a house that he had built. And so it was, we were kind of aware of his history and his role in New Brunswick history and in Confederation. And we'd always kind of wanted to do a little project around him. And so we'd written plays and different iterations of a story around him. And so we landed on doing this animation. So I kind of dropped the Coffee Cafe for a bit, and we did this 20-minute animation. It took forever, on Albert Smith and his role in Confederation. So that was kind of the first big one that we did.
Really neat.
Yeah. And then the other ones that you see there, you see in the top left.
That must be Travis.
That's Travis Furlong with the red hat. So the red hat figures into the whole story.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have Scotty and Tony on the top right.
Right.
And then Emma Rudy as Anne down there below on the bottom left. Yeah.
Super cool.
Yeah,
as
fun.
You were talking, I put 2 and 2 together with that. I was like, oh yeah, there's Travis. Oh, Scotty and Tony. Oh, okay, there we go. That makes sense. Yeah.
All falls into place. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess we want to know what does Kent want to be when he grows up?
Oh my goodness. I've given up.
Right.
Growing up. I'm done. Yeah, we, our dream for Rhonda and I, we just, if all the bills were paid and, the bank account was full of money, we would just keep doing this stuff. It's fun. We would write books and we would just be able to do them faster. That's all. Jobs just get in the way of
It does.
what you really want to do, right? So
yeah, it really does.
Yeah,
So
that would be fun.
Go ahead.
That's the dream.
Yeah.
I'll finish the sentence. That's it.
Well, I want to know more about your dream. I want to know what keeps you going.
Oh, what keeps me going? I just keep waking up every day. I don't know. That's
Me too.
It's better than
and
the
get up,
alternative, right?
get up and
Yeah.
do it again, I guess. So
Yeah.
yeah, you know, a lot of these stories, a lot of the scripts that you kind of have it in the backlog are just. I think it's a lot like you guys. Like I listened to your background on your podcast. It's just joking around with your family, or you know that would be a funny episode, and so a lot of them are born out of that.
Yeah.
Just silly stuff going on in your life, and you wrap a story around it. So
Mhm.
I think that's where I have the most fun, really, is just joking around with the kids or the rest of my family, and yeah, and little seedlings like that will pop up, and you can kind of make something out of them. It's fun.
Yeah.
Mm.
We asked the big question at the end. What makes you imperfect?
Oh, you're terrible.
I
I
know.
watched your other
Well, no,
podcast, and got to that, like, before you guys asked me to do this, I was like, I don't
They're
know
gonna
how I'd
ask me that.
answer that.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I wasn't even thinking. I was like, I don't know how I'd answer that. Like, that's a hard question. And then just listen to the person. Oh, that's pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah.
But thought, and I'd never. Anyway, um, I'm everything.
Same though.
I'm
Yeah,
I'm in.
same.
You know, there's. I think it's a real. I think the question implies, what makes you imperfect? That if we wanted to try to be perfect, you'd just be complete in yourself, right?
Right.
That you wouldn't need anybody outside because you're perfect. You've got it all. And I think that's probably um, that's one of the things that I've learned over the years, is that we do need other people.
Mhm.
That's the reason all those people are around you for, is because you need them, right? So
Right.
um, that's I think that's what makes me imperfect, is really everything, and the fact that I have to keep reminding myself of that, because I don't even do that perfectly. Right? I have to. I catch myself thinking, you know, it can be pretty hard on myself, I think, and like we did one book, and I'm not really happy with the drawings, and
We're so hard on ourselves. Yeah.
and I still catch myself doing that, even though I've at least learned to try new things, and you know pick up a new thing, or step out and just try something new. I still have to push myself to do that, because I'm worried about you know I'm not there's a million other people doing that way better than I do
Yeah.
already. And that
It's
that's always going to be true. There's a million people doing nicer books and
You're
doing nicer
preaching to the choir.
animations.
Yeah.
So it's
and
like
why do
I'll
we
just
do
watch them. They're
Yep.
better.
why do
And
we
that's
do that to ourselves? Yeah.
uh I
It's
don't know. It certainly inhibits you from
Yeah.
trying anything, from getting better at anything. I'm never going to be the best at any of this stuff. Not even perfect. Like I don't even think I'm the best
Well,
software developer.
what is
But do I
the
need to be,
best,
right?
right?
Yeah. Do
What
I need
what
to
is
be?
the best?
Yeah.
Right? Everybody's definition is different and everybody has their strengths and their weaknesses, and it's just I think you answered that question really well.
Oh,
That
good. Oh,
that we all need other people, and like you said, if we were all perfect, then what the heck are we doing here? It's a journey to try to
exactly.
figure out what we're supposed to be doing and what we thrive in and all that sort of,
Right.
crazy life stuff.
Well, I
and
think you guys are hitting it right. Like I think the perfection comes in um looping in those other people, because we do need people. We do need others, and so I think that's the perfection we're seeking, is
Hmm.
in the relationships and the people around us. So
it is. I mean, our podcast is imperfect,
mm.
for sure. I can hear the snowplow going up and down the sidewalk. I hear a low hum. That's what that is. And here I am recording on this phone. And, Kennedy and I don't know how many episodes we are in now, but we're still pretty fresh at this. I'm sure you could tell when we get started. But, um, you know, we've had the discussion of this is so much work to be carrying, just for
Hmm.
a minute, even like, are we doing the right thing? Should we? I could
Yeah.
use that time somewhere else. But I'll tell you what, we've had half a dozen to 10 people reach out to us at different points along our show's journey and say, like, I'm so glad, thank you for doing that show on that. I never looked at it that way. Or somebody else reached out and said, like, I've really been struggling, and it gives me something to look forward to every week. And it just things like that. There's been a number of different people that were like, well, we kind of have to keep doing it now, right? Like,
But then
That's
you got to
amazing.
think too, there's people who don't reach out like that as well. So how much of an
Exactly.
impact do you have? You will never know. So it's the same with
Exactly.
your animation. Like, you don't know the actual impact you have on people. You got awarded for the film festival and things like that. Like, and I'm sure that was a shock to you at first. Like,
It was.
me? Like, what? Oh, it won. Yeah, see, that's just like, oh, me?
Yeah. Oh,
I
really?
just draw cartoons.
You picked it. Oh, okay.
Right? Yeah.
and you've had a lot of outreach too, Kent. Like you said, when we were on the mission trip and you connected with kids through your art, and that, you connect with people on the weeks that you play on the worship team at church, and you've been able to use that, to put it to some good too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
So, Kent, we wanted to also just give you the opportunity to let anyone know that's interested where they can find you, where the Coffee Cafe is, so that they can go watch it, where they can find your books if they're still, like, if they're being sold, things like that.
Still being sold. So you can find nearly all that stuff on codepoetmedia.com. And there's an issue with the security key, so some browsers are going to give you a little warning. But I promise there's no bad scripts in there. So codepoetmedia.com. But you can find us on YouTube. We're at Code Poet Media. And on Facebook, we're Code Poet Media there too. And Instagram, we're codepoet.media. So somebody messed
stole
up
it,
yeah.
And if people just do a general search on YouTube, I think I've done that as well, and it seems to pop up as well.
You can
So
find us. You can
yeah,
find us.
you're
Search
not
for
hard
Code
to find.
Poet Media. You should find it. And the books are available on Amazon.ca, and just search for Kent Bulmer, and all those books will show up.
Really cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Kent, for taking the time to chat with us today. We really appreciate it. And obviously, all three of us had our own little connections on the side, but we think what you're doing is really cool and really plays into our message of just doing what you love to do because you love to do it. And that's the reward in itself. And it shouldn't matter what people think of you and if it's imperfect at first. So we really appreciate you taking the time today, and also your cooperation and patience with our technological issues that we spared everyone else with.
Thank you so much for having me.
The technological difficulties have not been fun, but speaking with you has been fun.
Yeah.
There's at least one perk, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Ken.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
If you or someone you know has a unique story to tell, we'd love to hear from you. Email us at theimperfectpodcast@outlook.com.
For more information and how to connect with us on social media, you can visit us at our website, theimperfectpodcast.ca.
And from whichever platform you are listening to this episode, be sure to like, share, and leave us a review. We would really appreciate your feedback. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode.
We look forward to hearing your feedback and seeing you all find that extra joy and embrace your own imperfect.
See you next week.